Welcome to Season 4 of the Questions With podcast, hosted by Quest Ventures, the top venture capital fund in Asia. I am your host, April Vano, and join me as we explore the dynamic startup ecosystem and business landscape in the Philippines. As we listen to thought leaders and industry experts, innovators and entrepreneurs, we'll uncover the stories, insights, and trends across different industries shaping the future of this vibrant Southeast Asian nation. Today, we have with us Ms. Chit Juan, a trailblazing woman who's breaking barriers and making waves in the areas of sustainability, food, and agriculture in the Philippines. Pacita, or Chit Juan, is the founder of homegrown brands Figaro Coffee Company, Binalot Fiesta Foods, and ECHOstore. A social entrepreneur, coffee crusader, and advocate for sustainable agriculture, Ms. Chit is the president and co-chair for the Philippine Coffee Board, Vice President of the ASEAN Coffee Federation, and the Counselor for Southeast Asia of Slow Food International. A champion for women's empowerment through business, she also currently serves as a trustee of the Philippine Women's Economic Network. In this episode, we'll delve into her views and outlook on the Philippines, uncovering invaluable insights and inspiration along the way through her stories as an entrepreneur, industry leader, and champion for women. Hello, Ms. Chit. Welcome to Questions With podcast. Good morning.
Good morning, April. Glad to be here. Thank you for your invitation.
You're welcome. Happy to have you with us in this podcast. So let's kick off with some introduction and background. Sustainability, women empowerment, and coffee is your passion. Can you tell us a bit more about this and perhaps some of the pivotal moments or decisions that help you align your interests into these areas?
Well, actually, the 3 or 4 or 5 advocacies actually intertwine because it starts with what you love to do, what you love to drink, what you love to eat. And I love coffee. And because I love coffee, I started a business in coffee. And after I stepped out of the leadership position, I went on to still do work in coffee. I don't consider it work really, but it's helping the Philippines get back on its feet and as far as coffee is concerned, because we're a net importer right now. And the Filipinos drink a lot of coffee. So at some point, we need to think about self-sufficiency. And we have started. So that's coffee. And then there's a lot of women in coffee. Women pick the best coffee fruits. Women sort the best coffees, remove the defects, remove any foreign material. And now there are also women roasters and women cafe owners. So women figure in all the parts of the coffee value chain. So I'll park that there. Coffee, women. And third, we really need to make coffee a sustainable crop. So there goes the sustainability angle. And because I love food, and because in slow food is a movement, and I've been involved in slow food since, I would say, 12 years ago. It wraps up everything in a nice, neat package of advocacy that doesn't seem like work. So in all of this, the common denominator, I guess, would be sustainability in business, because you cannot be sustainable as anything if you don't think of a business or sustainability equals business thoughts and strategies, and business thoughts and strategies need sustainability. I don't know if I'm making sense there, but they are actually very interrelated. So that's a very, very long introduction on why these are my advocacies.
No, thank you for that, and couldn't agree more with you on that. And perhaps to build on what you just shared on sustainability as a center of how you do business, we've actually seen you also be part of the development of the social enterprise ecosystem in the Philippines. And perhaps you can share with us how you perceive the evolution, right, of this sector, because I'm sure you've seen it in the early days, and then you have seen it now. What are the key areas there, and how do you think it has grown, and perhaps the impact it has already made and continues to make?
Okay, so social enterprise, when we conceived, when we thought about Echo Store, uh, Echo for everyone's information, just so we're on the same page. Echo is an acronym, and E is environment, C is community because we wanted to help communities, H is a little cheesy, but to give them hope, and O is organization. And so uh, I've mentioned this in many interviews that Echo could not stand alone. It had to explain that it was a store. So ergo Echo Store. So it's not eco like ECO eco-friendly, but it's eco. Also because, you know, the founders, Jeannie, Rina, and I, sometimes we can get a little punny or witty. So echo is also because we wanted it to echo. We wanted it to reverberate, and we wanted it to be copied by people. So you might say, "Oh, she's nuts," but I guess if we wanted to have a social enterprise, which means the needs of the community, your stakeholders are already embedded in the business plan, then you have to think of making business but being socially responsible. So social enterprise, enterprise meaning business. And back in the day, I would say maybe 16 years ago, we were really like a handful of dreamers who thought that maybe we can mix business and our advocacy. So with Echo Store, we wanted to help, save the world, save the planet. Um, we wanted to help our communities of women producers, small producers, and then we wanted to work with organizations. Well, lo and behold, 16 years later, we're still around. And, we went through the pandemic. We had to convert to a lot of digital training, etc. But Echo Store still stands. And social enterprises, I think, must, uh, there are always headwinds. There are always headwinds because there are detractors who'll say, "You'll never make it. You'll never make it past a year. I'll give you 6 months," And we just carried on. We just soldiered on, if you will. And it's because from the get-go, we said, this is not going to make us rich in money, but it's going to be a very fulfilling business. So I think social enterprises must keep that in mind. You're not there to reap a lot of profits and do 5x, 10x, etc., as the words would be now for venture capital, for angel investors. We were approached by many, but we kept to our own pockets. It may have been limiting for us, financially speaking, if people were actually serving us 9% friendly loans, no collateral, etc. But we said, you know what? We don't want any stress on our back. So we're just going to go the way that is very careful, the way that is very, I would say, strategically simple. We didn't want any fancy capital raising or whatever. And it has worked for us. So social enterprises, a lot have folded up. Sad to say, from all the pioneers we met almost 20 years ago, but there are still a few of us who remain standing, and there are new ones born every day. So I would say the throughput, or there will always be social enterprises that you can find. It just so happened that when they do studies or feasibility studies or some research, they look for the oldest one, and ECHOstore seems to be one of the older ones. But that is the social enterprise, a short history, if you will, from from 16 years ago.
Right, and definitely, being resilient is a key to any entrepreneurship venture, whether it's a social enterprise or even just a traditional business. And of course, kudos to you and other social enterprises that are still standing strong. And perhaps maybe to build on that, you have made use of your position as, also a pillar for inspiration, but also as a platform. I know that ECHOstore carries different brands and other social enterprises also, which is amazing. So maybe perhaps not to talk about them individually, but perhaps you can share also like how do you see these different types of entrepreneurs or even the kinds of products and things that they offer, the social innovation that has been quite interesting over the last few years, maybe key examples from the ones that you've worked with
Yeah,
and partnered with.
very, very interesting question because even among our producers, there are some who have thrown in the towel, while there are some through the pandemic remain standing. So um, and we are very fulfilled in the fact that there are brands that have been bought now by bigger firms. For example, Carmen's Best ice cream. And Carmen's Best started with, delivering a few pints and quarts to our shop. And I said, okay, we'll try and sell it. It's highly perishable with brownouts in the Philippines, but okay, let's try it. Carmen's Best is now a big dairy firm because a big conglomerate bought into them. So you can look up Carmen's Best, but we're still in touch with the founder, Paco Magsaysay. Another is chocolate, and that's Philo Chua of Theo and Philo. Theo and Philo came to us probably in 2010 and showed us some baking chocolates, a few bars, and he said, would you like to carry my products? And I'm like, who's this part-time IT guy wanting to go into artisan chocolate making? Today, Philo has won awards. He's the latest Kata Award of CITEM. We're very proud. And you know what? He never forgets where he came from. So every time we give him a call, Philo, can you consign some chocolates just for, let's say, Father's Day? And he says, okay, let me, in Filipino, we call it utang na loob, or looking back to where you started. It's a different form of gratitude, if you will. And so Philo is one of those. Of course, at one point, we carried rags to riches. Even if we were co-winners in the Netherlands Business and Development back in 2008, we did carry some of their things. Then there's Jacinto and Lirio, who we carried the notebooks of. Now, entrepreneurs who have very small capital because they haven't met you guys may not agree to consign goods. They want to be paid outright. And I still have those in our list these days. Like, no, we just simply sell outright. But I like your product, so I'm going to buy them. So I still meet those. I will not name them anymore. But I will name those who said, oh yeah, we've been friends for so long. Here are my new products, and they will still consign. It is, of course, a strategy for me, for us, because with e-commerce, you have to have a wide range of products. You have to have a long tail, as they say in marketing. You have to have a product for everyone while keeping the old ones. It might be a dog, like it sells probably 10 a month, but you got to keep it. Or it might be something really very popular like sweet potato chips. And you just have to buy it because it's such a hot product. The producer knows better than to leave stocks with you unpaid. So there are business techniques. E-commerce, of course, with the advent of e-commerce, we had to tell them, hey, you're going to be in our site. Our site is 16 years old. It comes up on Google. So those things also help us. History helps us. So that's something that other entrepreneurs never think about. You can't buy history. You have to slowly make it and then use it to your best, I would say, effort in terms of marketing, in terms of IT, in terms of Google search, search engine marketing, and search engine optimization. History is number one.
I love how
I'll
you
stop there.
connected. Thank you, but I love the way you connected it to technology and how that's also been integrated into how you do business, especially as a retail store. But maybe I want to unpack a little bit more some of the things you said, but going back into our, I guess, key theme on sustainability, right? The examples you shared, a lot of them are actually food. Some brands you mentioned also my own favorites, to be honest. But at the core of it, we talk about sustainability and we talk about food. We talk about where that food comes from. So that's where sustainable agriculture comes in. Food security, is now front row in a lot of our conversations in different conventions and sustainability forums. So can you share a little bit more about the current scene in the Philippines from your point of view, and what are the things that need to be done, especially for the challenges faced by the agricultural sector?
Oh wow, that is that can be answered lengthily, but I will try to summarize my own experience. So we'll back to coffee. So we're very proud that Echo during the pandemic, we moved back to the farms. So from farm to table, we made it table to farm. So I fixed up our farm in Cavite, which is about 90 kilometers from Metro Manila, going southwest. And then Jeannie did Eco Farms Banahaw, which is in the southeast. So we're on opposite directions, but we were doing the same thing. We were developing our personal farms into what we call sustainable labs, if you will. So during the pandemic, you wanted some fresh air, you'd go to the farm. And because it lasted for so long, we actually saw the seasons change. So if you look at agriculture, you have to look at the whole year, or what they say, a whole season. You have to see all the seasons change and back to where it started. You have to even study moon phases, okay? Phases of the moon. Like, we're big believers in biodynamic agriculture, regenerative agriculture. So with those, you need to know, when is the best time for me to spray these vitamins on my plants? It's when it's the new moon. So no wonder farmers look at lunar calendars. So you start to think about that. Oh my gosh, that makes sense now. Why do they put all these moon phases in these huge calendars that sometimes you can only find in hardwares and those big calendars that you put on the wall that you see on every farmer's living room? It's actually to remind them of the phases of the moon. So sustainability in agriculture is a big word, but for us, it simply means beyond Eco Cafe, where we used to serve our own homegrown lettuce, arugula, tomatoes, eggplant. When we closed the cafe, we've started planting things, vegetables that we would eat at home. So we planted sweet potato, we planted eggplant, kangkong, or what do you call it, swamp cabbage, upland kangkong because it's not a swamp, tomatoes. And then I also started with herbs. So we now have rosemary and tarragon, etc. And how can you say it's sustainable? Well, we've been getting our food from these farms and our neighbors, and it's also a big laboratory for coffee because there is a coffee farm. So Jeannie found all kinds of vegetables in her farm, and now she's planting coffee. So with her, it's the other way around. Vegetables first, then coffee. With me, it was coffee first, then vegetables, and now we're also planting fruit trees. So what are we talking about? Sustainable agriculture is something that you can keep on doing, something that will feed you through the seasons, and practices that contribute to biodiversity practices that do not make the world any hotter. For us simple weekend farmers before, but now we really call ourselves farmers because we're there more than weekends. Sustainable agriculture is really about doing small steps to make sure that your farm, your place of, you know, wherever you plant, wherever you sow seeds, is going to be a sustainable project. And if everyone did that, like there were the plantitas and the plantitos, that was a trend during the pandemic, but they were planting water lily, they were planting snake plants, they were planting bromeliads. I mean, you can't really eat them, but it was food for the soul, so that's good. But we want to eat real food. So yesterday I was at the farm and I said, I think I'm going to have some sinigang. So I got kangkong. I think I'm going to have some salad. So I got talbos ng kamote or sweet potato shoots. So I'm not saying I'm getting 100% of my food from the farm, but it works. Like I can actually make people go there and taste this, and they will taste it. They will taste every leaf, every herb that grows, because they know we practice organic agriculture. So they're not scared. Even vegetarians come to the farm and they're not scared to eat what we have, or organic agriculture practitioners. We don't apply anything chemical. Of course, it has its risks. It has its the expense part, because you don't put chemicals, and some of the leaves do get holes, but I can eat wholly food, so that's fine. Anyway, I hope I sort of like brought you into the farm setting where I think everyone can grow their own food, or at least know where your food comes from. Because if I don't grow it, I go to some other place, a friend's farm, and ask if they have this vegetable or that fruit.
Thank you for that. I mean, perhaps our listeners are going to start getting hungry while listening to us. But perhaps some of them are also interested in food and agriculture, getting into business or becoming an entrepreneur in that space. Maybe you can share a little bit about, strategies, innovations, or what are the things you have done or you have seen others have done, whether it's quite similar to your farm to table or table to farm strategy over the last few years, or broadly, right, in the food industry. And how do you picture, or how would you want the food industry and agriculture industry look like?
You have to be patient. Agriculture is a business for patient people. If you are to succeed, patience is key. So I don't rush anything. I go by the seasons. If it's not the season for avocado, I don't force my avocado to fruit. If it's the all year round dough that we have in a tropical country like the Philippines are bananas, all kinds, all varieties, saba or cooking banana, you have the dessert banana, you have señorita. They just grow there and you bring home different kinds of bananas. There's coffee. In coffee, after we pick the fruit, we dry it, we get the bean. What do you do with the rest? Recently, we made studies on how to make it charcoal. So coffee chaff, coffee waste is not going to be waste, because there is a process that we learned from our very own DOST to make them into charcoal briquettes. So you can use them for barbecue. So part of I guess our experience is using all our waste. All our waste goes into compost. All our, except for dog poo, but everything, chicken waste, chicken dung, the chickens eat the grass, and then they lay the eggs, which I eat. And you have this ongoing relationship with your fruits and your chickens. I haven't gotten around to cows. I got scared about the goats because they were eating the coffee, so I returned them. So maybe the next will be cows. However, it goes against my idea on having less days for meat or milk, because cows are really the biggest methane producers of the world. I can't say I'm vegetarian, I'm flexitarian, but if I have to eat meat, I'll eat a very, very good cut of meat. And I'll do it sparingly, occasionally. Meat, sometimes vegetarians need meat, they say, because of the vitamin B12. But did you know, I just learned this from a vegan yesterday, that when you touch soil in the farm, you're actually going to get vitamin B12. I mean, it's amazing how you learn this. And so I was trying to analyze, so why are they making us eat meat? Because the grass is eaten by the cow, and therefore the B12 is in the cow and in its meat. Correct. So why eat the cow? Then just touch the soil like the cow does. And through the touching of the soil, this is so esoteric, but the vitamin B12 are microbes that live in the soil. And that's why I am such a soil believer. I mean, there's aquaponics, hydroponics, growing vegetables with light in a medium that's not soil. But for me, I love dirt. I love the soil because I think it's soil that is the whole soil is life. And so when I learned that, hey, vitamin B12, okay, let me touch the soil again. So if you're vegetarian, if you're vegan, go touch the soil. You'll get your B12. You don't have to eat that meat. You don't have to. Okay, so am I against meat? No, I subscribe to eating less of stuff that causes more climate change, So eat less meat, have your meatless Monday, fish Friday, and anywhere in between you can eat chicken and vegetables, etc. It's really everything in moderation.
Thank you for that insight and literally walking us through being in a farm and what you do with your fruits and vegetables, right? And I do think also that, food entrepreneurs, food innovators, especially the next generation now, should really look and take a step back. Like you said, go back to the soil, right? So whatever new innovation, whether it's in the process or across the value chain or the product itself, to be innovated, I think sustainability also needs to be, back at the core of these new products. But perhaps also, touching on the other key theme or advocacy, as we called it earlier, that you have been working on or working with is women empowerment. And you've shared that you've worked with women in the farm, especially in the coffee farms. You've also, met and even mentored other women social entrepreneurs. Maybe you can help us paint a picture of, this space in the Philippines. How have you noticed the hopefully positive shifts and changes around gender equality and empowerment, especially among entrepreneurs and those who are in the business sector? And perhaps what do you think, or how do you think these changes, have come into play over the last few years?
Wow. Women empowerment, men will always say, what about us? Don't we get a men's month? There's women's month. For me, it's really not about women power. It's more about diversity and inclusion. So we're thinking bigger than just empowering women. For me, let's make that clear. Empowering women, I empower them through a business. I empower them or I inspire them to get into a sustainable business because financial liberation, if you will, or financial independence is key in removing all the other issues about women not having power. So knowledge is power. So if you teach a woman, she's got power. So we mentor, we train them, digital or virtual or actual or physically. So we train women. Two is you also have to train them about finance, simple financial strategies, simple financial literacy. Once they have that, oh my God, it's like supersonic women, as entrepreneurs. But you have to first give them that financial independence. And that's what we practice in coffee. We pay the women. We don't pay the husband who just carried the coffee to the depot, So you make sure that the money is in the women's hands because studies have shown that when you put the money in the women's hands globally, they put it on food and the needs of the family. I'm not saying anything about the men. I only know about information about women all around the world. So give them financial independence. Give them knowledge. It's something that can't be stolen from them. It's something that, uh, that cannot be taken away from them. So women empowerment over the last few years has really, there's big strides, not only in women empowerment by diversity, but diversity in general, from corporate boards, because we also have a group that's the next gen organization of women corporate directors that is aligned with Women Corporate Directors International. So you start in businesses, you start at the top, the boards. Who makes the decisions? The boards. Who executes? Management. Management, we've had it all down pat. Women are in more managerial positions than men are. So we come out in all the surveys, top 10, top 7, top 5. The Philippines is always top in women managers. But we now think of the next step, and that's from the C-suite, CEOs, COOs, to the B-suite, which is the board, because the board makes a lot of decisions. So we're doing that on top, and like bibingka, like our rice cake, we also do it at the bottom. So at the bottom, you mentor. And mentoring is not just telling them this thing and leaving them. Mentoring is hand-holding. So if every woman handheld another woman, give her a leg up, I think we will have half the sky. I mean, women hold half the sky. I think we will have all these women empowered to make decisions, to be financially independent. Then they will not become victims of domestic abuse, violence, etc. And did you know that climate change also affects women differently? Because women have monthly periods, women have other health issues that men don't have. And can you imagine women in menopause and climate change? I mean, they must be really going crazy. So climate change affects women differently. But your question is about what strides we've made in women empowerment. I think now, there are more women who speak up. There are more women uh, who start businesses, because it also goes back to women have to put food on the table. So I think the Philippines is getting more mature in the empowerment scene. That from just women empowerment, we're moving into diversity and inclusion. Or they even have terms like DEI, diversity, equality or equity and inclusion. So, well, we hope that, of course, you cannot say that, oh, but we have so many women trafficked and victims of violence, etc. But you just gotta keep more women empowered so that the net amount remains bigger than women who are abused. Because abuse is a whole different scenario that I will not even venture talking about, because I'm not, I'm not, I would not consider myself an expert in such. For women in diversity and empowerment, I would think a lot of experience in ASEAN, women entrepreneurs, International Women's Coffee Alliance, women corporate directors. These are all global or regional organizations that women can join. Once they join, for example, our network, we have a Philippine Women's Economic Network, and you can join whether you're a professional, a businesswoman, etc. Then we take you to regional places and international connections. Because this, when you see the world, that this is done in Africa, this is done in Latin America, in US and Canada, then people say, well, I can do it too. And of course, we have a lot of help from Europe, from Sweden, from Canada, from Australia, on investing in women and investing in projects that will empower more women.
Maybe before we close, I wanted to build on that last point you said and you shared about investing in women. My original question was really where should people invest or where should people look into, right, as an emerging trend or opportunity for growth in the Philippines? And you've echoed, pun intended, on sustainability and, of course, women or women in business or those women led businesses. So perhaps on that, right, how can, let's say, the business sector or investors or, capital? We talked about social enterprise. We can talk about impact investors, but maybe broadly speaking, having a focus on the Philippines, where should this investment, where should this capital go? What are these opportunities you think we should not miss on, especially now?
Okay, so I think the investments that really need a lot of funds, and I would say are very promising strategy-wise because of inclusion, are women-led businesses. Uh, Women-led businesses get a lot of support, not just funds, but also training. There's a lot of advocacy groups that give free training, mentoring, and advice for women-led enterprises, like She Trades of International Trade Center, for example, Investing in Women of Australia, Global Affairs Canada did the Great Women Project with us. So I think women-led businesses. Number two, agriculture, sustainable agriculture, coffee. Of course, they're all my advocacies. Okay, coffee, whether it's planting coffee. Planting coffee now, we encourage with planting other trees. And this becomes like carbon capture, and you can have carbon accounting, and there can be a woman forester. We need a lot of women agriculturists and foresters. Of course, slow food. Slow food, another advocacy of mine. I think a lot of chefs are women, and a lot of people who like to, because they say that women have more, I don't know, sensory glands in their tongue. That's why women make good tasters, not just in coffee, but in food. So if you can support businesses, any or all of the above, I think you're going to be making the world a better place.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Ms. Chit. And I do have one final question just to wrap things up, but I think this will be a short answer because I don't know if this will be an easy answer or perhaps you haven't thought about it yet. So maybe to close, I know that you are a published author and writer. What do you think, or what would your next book be about?
Okay, now that you mentioned, actually, I'm starting a podcast this year on the things I write about, because some people don't read newspapers anymore. So I'm also going to be doing podcasts. So maybe that, my columns, a lot have requested for a compilation of my columns that they can read and reread. I hope not in the toilet, but people do have a lot of time reading in the bathroom. But they said, why can't we access your articles? So an easy answer would be a compilation of my books under my column Food for Thought, and that's very punny. That's the next book, because I can write a book about leadership, but I can also just say it in a 1,000-word column, and people don't have to take it anywhere. They can read it on their phones. I hope it becomes if we have the podcast, then it's like an audiobook. So a lot of answers for your one question. But yes, my next book should be about food for thought.
Oh, wonderful. I have an added title for that. It could be an anthology, Food for Thought by Ms. Chit Juan. And really, thank you for sharing your time and your thoughts with us at Questions With. We really appreciate these insights, and hopefully our listeners today was able to take a thing or two, perhaps explore entrepreneurship with sustainability in mind, with women empowerment and inclusion in mind, and of course, the growth in the Philippines. So once again, thank you so much to Ms. Chit for joining us, and thank you to everyone else listening and tuning in on this episode of Questions with Ms. Pacita Juan of ECHOstore. For more episodes like this, be sure to hit the follow button on whichever platform you're listening from. Again, I am your host, April Vano. Till next time.